What's up everybody? Today we're going to be tying an awesome micro craw that I designed. If you want to see my craw pattern that I made for bass and bigger fish, check out that video. I'll leave that in the description. But this one is for crappie and big panfish. So it's going to be quite a bit smaller. So to get started, I'm using a 1/32 ounce jig head. For the thread, I'm using UTC Ultra thread. This is olive color. We're just going to start that behind the head and take it down to the point of the hook. For the antenna, we're going to be using Sili legs. This is barred pumpkin with orange and green specks in it. So we're just going to tie these Sili legs right on top of the jig hook. You want to make sure there's one on each side. So just give that a few good wraps of thread. And then you can adjust them as needed just to make sure they're right on top and there's one on either side. Once you got that, you can tie it down again, give it a few more good wraps of thread. For the claws, we're going to be using a black barred olive rabbit strip. So to prepare these to be claws, this is what it's going to look like. We want to measure it out with the one we prepared already. Just make sure those line up, and then you can pull the fibers back so that it has the same amount as the other claw. Just like that. Then we're just going to clip those with our scissors. Just clip all those fibers off. If you try to pull them off the strip, it will pull the hide and stretch it out, and you don't want that, so just cut it as close as you can with the scissors. And once you've got your rabbit strips ready, you can just line those up. I like to line them up with the antenna, so just one on either side. You want to do a loose wrap of thread, and if it's in the right place, you can tighten it down and continue your wraps up the body. You just want the strips to end right at the head. Make sure they're lined up how you want them, and if so, you can just tighten it down again, just bring the thread back down. And as you can see, when you separate those claws, they look very realistic. Just like that. Now we're going to create a cone of hackle, so I'm just using a black rooster saddle hackle feather. This is a size 14. I'm just going to tie it in right there where we tied in the claws and the antenna. Tie the stem up to the head. And we want the hackle fibers to cup backward like this. We're going to do about 6 or 7 wraps of that. Just want each wrap to be pressed up against the last. Just a nice thick layer of hackle. Once you're happy with that, you can bring your thread back down and tie off the hackle feather. Once it's tied off, you can cut the butt end. And now we're going to grab these hackle fibers and just force them back like this. Just make sure you grab all of them and readjust as needed. Then we're just going to tie over those with our thread. Just a few wraps of thread over those. And as you can see, what that does is it creates a nice cone of hackle that mimics the face of the crawfish. Maybe just do one more good wrap, and that looks good. Alright, for the ribbing and the body segmentation, I'm going to be tying in a piece of 4-pound mono, just regular crappie fishing line. Just going to tie it so that the tag end goes up to the head. Just make sure you tie it down really tight because mono is slick. Then bring the thread back down to that cone of hackle. And now we're going to tie in our shell, which I'm using black stretch flex for that, about an 1/8 inch wide. Just going to tie that in right on top. It may look like we're going to tie these materials upside down because when we fish this jig everything will be flipped, But I'm just doing that because it has easier access on this smaller hook. And then I'm going to show you how to turn that material at the very end so that it's the right way. Once you've got that where you want it, right on top, just tie it down really tight. For the legs and the body, we're going to be using this medium-sized cactus chenille. This is just olive color. Just going to tie that on here so that the tag end goes up to the head. Again, just to create a uniform body thickness. Pull your other materials back and then you can start winding that chenille. Make sure each wrap is pressed up against the last so you have a nice thick tight body. Don't want any gaps in there. So just work your way up the body until you get to the head. And once you're at the head, you can tie off that chenille. Make sure it's tied down very tight. Do a wrap of thread in front of the chenille, and then you can clip the chenille off. Then pull your chenille fibers back and do a few more wraps of thread just right there at the head. This will just help us control some of the fibers. Perfect. Now we're going to grab our stretch flex and just stretch it right over the top of that. Make sure it's lined up perfectly. And if it is, you can do a loose wrap of thread. Check it out again. If it's straight, you can tighten that down. So just get 3 or 4 really tight wraps over that stretch flex. One wrap in front of it, and then you can pull it to stretch it and cut it off. Now we're going to do our ribbing, so grab your mono, and we're just going to weave it through those body fibers. Just wiggle it through so that it doesn't trap anything. And we're just going to do nice even segments along the shell. This will just make it look extra realistic. And if you do trap some of those chenille fibers, it will be okay because we're going to brush through that after. But just continue with your ribbing until you get to the head. And again, since it's mono, you want to tie it down extra tight. Once that's tight, you can cut it off. And now we're going to whip finish. So do a 5 or 6 turn whip finish. Pull your thread tight and cut the thread. Now, like I said, we're going to brush through the chenille fibers just to pull out any of the fibers that may have been trapped. So that is it. That is all our materials tied in. You can see how realistic that shell is and everything on this basically. And now we're going to flip the materials so that everything is on the right side. Alright, so to flip the materials, we're just going to take our jig right here, and no matter how tight you tied it in, as long as you didn't use any glue, you'll be able to turn the materials. So we're just going to turn the whole body on the hook, move the claws and antenna out of the way as needed, and we're just going to turn that until the shell lines up with the point of the hook. Just like that. And now everything sits the right way. So as you can imagine, these claws and antenna have a ton of action in the water. And when this thing sits on the bottom, that's usually when I get the most bites. The crappie and panfish will just follow it, and when they see it hit the bottom, that's when they attack usually. So I like to just jig it slowly on the bottom. But yeah, you can tie this up in your favorite colors, whatever colors the craws are in your area, that's what I would do. I hope you like this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe.